The story begins with Kim Duke-Paul, a middle-aged man who holds a high position in a gang. Despite his intimidating reputation, he's struggling with something as simple as math. One day, his teacher comes over to help him with a test, but is disappointed by Duke-Paul's lack of progress. The teacher scolds him harshly, not realizing who Duke-Paul truly is. However, the moment gets interrupted when one of Duke-Paul's gang members, Jong Chul, bursts in to announce that they've caught Kwang-soo, a gang member who may have betrayed them. Just as the tension begins to calm down, Kwang-soo tries to escape and even threatens the teacher with a knife. This angers Duke-Paul, and in a swift and skillful move, he defeats Kwang-soo with ease, revealing his exceptional fighting abilities. Even at 47 years old, Duke-Paul is agile and strong. After this incident, they go to visit the chairman, the leader of their gang. Duke-Paul expresses his concern about Kwang-soo possibly betraying them to a rival gang, but the chairman stays calm. Instead of worrying about the betrayal, he advises Duke-Paul to focus on his studies and prepare to take over the gang. On his way home, Duke-Paul decides to walk alone, sending his driver and bodyguard away. While strolling, he stops for a smoke and encounters a young high school student named Yi Hyun, standing on a bridge, ready to jump. Duke-Paul rushes to save him, pulling him back from the edge. However, in the process, Duke-Paul is hit by a truck. When Duke-Paul wakes up, he is shocked to find himself in a hospital. But more surprising is that he is now in Yi Hyun's body. Meanwhile, his gang members, Jong Chul and Jong Soo, arrive at the hospital to get revenge on Duke-Paul, unaware that he's now in a different body. They attack him and drag him to his own funeral, where he tries desperately to convince them that he's alive, but no one believes him. Duke-Paul thinks that if he can return to his own body, everything will go back to normal. He runs to the morgue, hoping for a miracle, but a doctor informs him that his body is too far gone. Feeling lost, Duke-Paul tries jumping off the bridge again, hoping it will switch things back, but instead, he wakes up 3 days later with a broken foot. Saddened by missing his own funeral, he chooses to embrace his new life in Yi Hyun's body. At the hospital, Duke-Paul notices that no one has visited Yi Hyun, making him curious about the boy's life. Soon, Yi Hyun's father's secretary arrives, bringing school books and warning him to stay out of trouble. As Duke-Paul reads Yi Hyun's diary, he learns that the boy was bullied at school and neglected at home. Determined, Duke-Paul leaves the hospital and heads to Yi Hyun's home. The house manager welcomes him and fills him in on the family's troubles, especially mentioning Mi-kyung, the chairman's secretary. She suspects Mi-kyung is trying to sabotage Yi Hyun's family because of their potential claim to the company. As time passes, Duke-Paul trains Yi Hyun's body, preparing to return to school. He cuts his hair into a more intimidating style and studies everything about Yi Hyun's life. When school finally begins, everyone is shocked at how much Yi Hyun has changed. He's almost unrecognizable. The school's bully gang, led by Jae-min, decides to test him. Confident in his fighting skills, Duke-Paul, now in Yi Hyun's weaker body, tries to fight back, but it doesn't go as planned. Despite his experience, he underestimates his new body's limitations. The fight ends with him knocked out cold, leaving the situation unresolved for now. The story picks up with Duke-Paul, still in Yi Hyun's body, getting knocked out by the bullies. While unconscious, he has a strange conversation with Yi Hyun's spirit. Yi Hyun tells Duke-Paul to stop trying to help him, believing it won't make any difference. However, Duke-Paul is determined to change things for the better. As Duke-Paul wakes up, Se-kyung comes to his aid and gives him first aid. But Se-kyung starts noticing something odd. Yi Hyun, a high school student, talks like an older man and mentions things like being in the military. Confused, Se-kyung questions him, especially since Yi Hyun didn't even recognize him at the bookstore, despite their supposed friendship. Meanwhile, the bullies who attacked him are puzzled, wondering how Yi Hyun got the courage to fight back. As the days go by, Duke-Paul, now living as Yi Hyun, starts forming friendships with his deskmate and her group of friends. He looks out for them, ensuring they eat and get home safely, earning their admiration for acting like a protective older brother. However, Se-kyung continues to watch him closely, still suspicious of his true identity. One night, Duke-Paul visits the gang's bathhouse and confronts 2 gang members. Using his well-honed fighting skills, he quickly puts them in their place, declaring that he is Duke-Paul. The gang members, shocked but convinced, bow to him. Later, the school bullies, led by Jae-min, show up at the bathhouse, wanting to join the gang. Dong-soo, who took over the gang after Duke Pal's supposed death, is surprised when he hears about a young boy claiming to be Duke Pal. Meanwhile, Se-kyung and Yi-hyun's relationship becomes more complicated. Se-kyung, still hunting for the truth, helps Yi-hyun study, though Yi-hyun feels torn. He's in his final year of high school and unsure of what the real Yi-hyun's dreams were. One night, Se-kyung sneaks into Yi-hyun's room to search for clues, even collecting DNA evidence to verify his suspicions. Yi-hyun catches him and grows wary of Se-kyung's determination to uncover the truth. Se-kyung admits he feels guilty and wants to know what truly happened to Yi-hyun. Pretending everything is normal would mean that the real Yi-hyun didn't matter to anyone, which deeply saddens him. The next day at school, Jae-min and his gang show Yi-hyun a video of the cruel things they did to him in the past, hoping to intimidate him. But instead of backing down, Yi-hyun gets angry and provokes Jae-min to throw the first punch. A fierce fight breaks out, and Yi-hyun, channeling Duke Pal's fighting skills, easily defeats the bullies. Just as he's about to deliver a final blow to Jae-min, the bully realizes he's in over his head and asks who Yi-hyun really is. Calmly, Yi-hyun responds, "I'm Duke Pal, second in command of the Chil-sung gang." Inside, Se-kyung is talking to their homeroom teacher, who asks him to protect Yi-hyun from the bullies. However, both Se-kyung and the teacher are shocked when they look outside and see Yi-hyun giving the bullies a serious beating. The teacher quickly runs out to stop the fight. Afterward, the teacher scolds Jae-min and his gang while showing concern for Yi-hyun. She takes him to the staff room and tells him he can report the bullies to the school violence committee and even file charges against them. After school, Yi-hyun creates a list of things to accomplish before the real Yi-hyun returns to his body. His top priorities are dealing with the bullies, protecting his mom, graduating from high school, and making new friends. Meanwhile, Se-kyung is still suspicious of Yi-hyun's drastic changes and decides to have a DNA test done with the help of his dad's friend. To his surprise, the test confirms that Yi-hyun is who he claims to be. This leaves Se-kyung confused, but still determined to figure out what's going on. Back at school, Yi-hyun continues to struggle academically, but he excels in making new friends. He even asks Se-kyung to help him study, but Se-kyung initially refuses. However, after Yi-hyun saves Se-kyung from a tricky situation with Jae-hoon, Se-kyung agrees to help him. Meanwhile, Dong-soo and Jong Cheol continue with their gang plans. They decide to give Jae-min a chance to prove himself after Dong-soo is forced to miss an important mission. Jae-min, excited to join the gang, finds himself thrown into a car and involved in a kidnapping attempt at Yi-hyun's house. Se-kyung and Yi-hyun are walking home when they stumble upon a shocking scene. Yi-hyun's mother is being kidnapped by the Dong-soo gang, with Jae-min helping them. Acting quickly, Yi-hyun and Se-kyung fight back, forcing the gang to retreat. Jae-min panics and runs away when things start going wrong. Shortly after, the police arrive, and the remaining gang members flee. Yi-hyun's mom is rushed to the hospital, and Se-kyung stays behind to assist. He is surprised when Yi-hyun tries to bribe the police, and when that fails, Yi-hyun lies. He tells the police that it was just a misunderstanding with some drunk gang members. When Se-kyung asks why he lied, Yi-hyun explains that involving the police will only complicate things. He insists on handling things himself, especially since he believes Mi-kyung, his father's former lover, is behind the kidnapping. Se-kyung returns home and lies to his dad about how he got injured, claiming he was attacked by a street gang. His father, Myung-hyun, takes him back to the scene to investigate, but finds no evidence. Angered by Se-kyung's dishonesty, Myung-hyun scolds him, causing Se-kyung to faint from the stress. In the meantime, Yi-hyun hires security to protect his mom. Meanwhile, Dong-soo and his gang report back to Mi-kyung, updating her on the failed kidnapping. Dong-soo vows to complete the mission and punish Jae-min for abandoning them. At school, Yi-hyun becomes more popular, impressing his classmates with his sports skills and fighting abilities. Se-kyung confesses that he lied to his dad to protect Yi-hyun. Feeling guilty, Yi-hyun apologizes for getting him into trouble and tries to cheer him him up by teaching him some fighting techniques. At home, Myung-hyun begins to suspect that Yi Hae-on is a bad influence on Se-kyung. That night, Se-kyung walks Yi Hae-on home, only to find Jaemin lurking nearby. Jaemin is anxious to know if the kidnapping was reported to the police. Surprised to learn that Yi Hae-on lives there, Jaemin tries to play innocent. Despite his anger toward Jaemin for past bullying, Yi Hae-on offers him food and lets him stay the night, though he makes it clear they are not friends. Later, Se-kyung confronts Jaemin, accusing him of pretending not to be involved with the gang. Yi Hae-on overhears and demands Jaemin tell him everything about the gang. He soon realizes the gang is led by Dong-soo, though he hadn't known it before because the members wore masks during the kidnapping. After the evening classes, Yi Hae-on excuses himself and tells Se-kyung that he has to meet someone. Yet, just when he takes a few steps, he is kidnapped right in front of Se-kyung. Se-kyung tries to stop the car, but it speeds away, and Yi Hae-on's phone falls to the ground. Panicking, Se-kyung almost calls the police, but remembers Yi Hae-on's warning not to involve them. He hangs up and quickly starts thinking of another way to help his friend. Meanwhile, Yi Hae-on is taken to meet Dong-soo. A fierce fight breaks out, and although Yi Hae-on fights back, he is eventually overpowered and knocked out. At school, the bullies are punished by the teacher and ordered to clean the classroom. However, they have other plans. The gang has asked them to kidnap Jaemin and bring him to the Sinho Hotel, where they plan to teach him a lesson for abandoning them. Jaemin finds out and runs away, bumping into Se-kyung, who is torn between helping Yi Hae-on or obeying his father. Jaemin drags Se-kyung along, and they hide. Jaemin explains that the gang wants to kidnap Yi Hae-on's mom again that night. Se-kyung tries to convince Jaemin to go with him and stop it, but Jaemin refuses, only caring about himself. Frustrated, Se-kyung decides to go alone and takes a taxi to Yi Hae-on's house, ignoring his father's messages. His father, using a phone tracker, follows him. Meanwhile, Yi Hae-on wakes up and speaks with Dong-soo. He reveals some secrets that only Dukpal would know, trying to earn Dong-soo's trust. Dong-soo tells Yi Hae-on that Mi-kyung hired him to kidnap Yi Hae-on's mom and sent her to a mental health facility, and they were supposed to get rid of Yi Hae-on as well. Yi Hae-on offers Dong-soo a deal, break up the gang, and he'll help him open a restaurant. Dong-soo is unsure whether Yi Hae-on is telling the truth or trying to trick him. He's also worried because Chil-sung, the gang leader, was injured in a fight and owes Mi-kyung money for paying his medical bills. Se-kyung arrives at the hotel, and his father soon follows. His dad offers to help Yi Hae-on if Se-kyung promises to stop being friends with him. Se-kyung agrees, fearing for Yi Hae-on's life. However, he is shocked when Yi Hae-on walks out of the building unharmed. Despite this, Se-kyung's father confronts Dong-soo, using his position as a senior prosecutor to threaten him. This adds to Dong-soo's doubts, and he decides to keep an eye on Yi Hae-on instead of acting. Back home, Yi Hae-on is touched by Se-kyung's efforts to protect his mom and promises to help Se-kyung gain independence from his controlling father. The next day, Se-kyung tells Yi Hae-on about the deal with his dad, and Yi Hae-on assures him that it's not his fault. They secretly plan how to stay in contact and continue their studies together. Yi Hae-on even promises to teach Se-kyung new things. Over the next few days, Se-kyung starts distancing himself from Yi Hae-on and spends time with Jae-hoon. Meanwhile, Yi Hae-on focuses on getting Jaemin back to school. He finds Jaemin working at a convenience store and promises to help fix things with the gang. Meanwhile, Yi Hae-on gets a call from Se-kyung, telling him that he's considering ending his life by jumping into traffic from a bridge. Yi Hae-on rushes to him and takes him to the beach to calm him down, where Se-kyung finally relaxes. In the next scene, we see Se-kyung and Yi Hae-on going on a trip together. Se-kyung is upset with his father, Myung-hyun, who has been too controlling. Things got worse when Se-kyung discovered his dad had hidden cameras in his room. Unbeknownst to them, Yong-cheol and Dong-soo are secretly following the boys. Yi Hae-on notices but chooses to ignore them. He and Se-kyung have a fun day at the beach, shopping, riding bikes, and enjoying a lot of food. When they try to book a hotel room, they are turned away because they are minors without an adult. Yi Hae-on remembers a motel owner who owes a favor to Dukpal and uses this connection to get a room. At the same time, Jong Cheol and Dong Soo also wonder about Yi Hyun's connection to Deukpal. They plan to kidnap Yi Hyun later, but end up falling asleep. At the motel, Se-kyung opens up to Yi Hyun about the abuse he suffers at home. He reveals how his father monitors him through secret cameras, which makes him feel anxious and afraid. Yi Hyun worries that Se-kyung might try to hurt himself again and decides to help. While Se-kyung sleeps, Yi Hyun calls Myung-hyun and tells him that Se-kyung needs time away to deal with the situation. Though angry, Myung-hyun agrees, as long as Se-kyung attends school. The next morning, Yi Hyun meets with Jong Cheol and Dong Soo. After talking about their past, they start believing that Yi Hyun might be Deukpal's son. They embrace him, promising to protect him as if they were his uncles. At school, Myung-hyun shows up, accusing Yi Hyun of forcing Se-kyung on the trip, getting him drunk and taking him to a motel. The stress is too much for Se-kyung, and he faints. While he's being treated by the nurse, Yi Hyun confronts Myung-hyun, calling him a bully and telling him to stop hurting his son. Yi Hyun warns him to get help for his trauma to become a better father. The next day, Yi Hyun finds out that Se-kyung is not in school, and the situation worsens when Myung-hyun spreads lies about him. Even the other students start to believe the rumors. Before Yi Hyun can address this, he gets a call from the police, accusing him of bullying. He realizes that Myung-hyun and Mi-kyung may be working together, but Yi Hyun knows he has to stay strong. In the next scene, Mi-kyung calls Yi Hyun and arranges a meeting. During their conversation, she brags about her new plan to ruin him. She reveals that she no longer needs the gang and has paid the bullies to report him to the police for beating them up. She even promises the boys lawyers and a lifetime of support, which excites them. Before leaving, Mi-kyung taunts Yi Hyun, claiming he has no evidence against her and she'll never be caught. Yi Hyun returns to school, surprised that his friends still treat him kindly. Se-kyung also arrives, but Jae-hoon tells him he shouldn't stay in the same class as Yi Hyun because of the ongoing bullying case. He returns to class, and Yi Hyun is happy to see him. Jaemin soon arrives, announcing that Yi Hyun has been reported to the police by the other boys. The three friends discuss what to do next, but Yi Hyun assures them he will handle it. After he leaves, Se-kyung scolds Jaemin for not helping earlier. Meanwhile, Yi Hyun confronts the bullies and offers them a chance to retract their false statements, but they refuse. They feel confident in Mi-kyung's promises and believe they can get away with it. The boys then try to convince Jaemin to join them in taking Yi Hyun down. Jaemin meets with the bullies, shocked to hear their plan to destroy Yi Hyun's life and send him to juvenile detention. They even have fake medical documents to support their claims. However, Jaemin refuses to cooperate, knowing he is the one who fought them, not Yi Hyun. At the police station, Yi Hyun tries to prove his innocence, but the officer demands more evidence. The boys had already deleted the videos showing the bullying, so Yi Hyun needs a witness. He contacts Dong Soo and Jong Cheol for help, asking them to track down Mi-kyung while he handles the bullying case. While rushing to the police station, Yi Hyun accidentally bumps into a girl who has a crush on him but remains oblivious to her feelings. At the police station, Yi Hyun explains why his parents are unreachable. The officers even tried to contact his father, Mr. Bae, but he was out of town. Meanwhile, Si-kyung confronts his dad for escalating the case. Myung-hyun insists that Yi Hyun is bad news, but Se-kyung defends him. In the next scene, Chil-sung visits Yi Hyun's mom at the hospital and finds Yi Hyun asleep. He has a brief conversation with her, sharing his shock over everything her son has been through while trying to keep things together. Chil-sung is curious if Yi Hyun is really Deukpal's son, but Yi Hyun's mom denies knowing anyone by that name. Before leaving, Chil-sung warns her to get things in order and protect her son before it's too late. Meanwhile, Jaemin surprises everyone by betraying his friends. He steals their tablet, which contains videos of them bullying students. A fight breaks out, and even Se-kyung joins in, which shocks Myung-hyun. Thanks to Jaemin's confession and the video evidence, the prosecution arrests the boys. Yi Hyun rushes to the hospital, where Chil-sung, Dong Soo, and Jong Cheol are waiting for him. Chil-sung asks to speak privately with him. After a brief conversation, Chil-sung realizes who Yi Hyun really is and starts crying, knowing he will lose Deukpal again. Yi Hyun admits his true identity, and Chil-sung praises him for staying to protect the boy. After a tearful goodbye, Chil-sung asks his men to stay and help Deukpal. Soon after discharging his mom from the hospital, Yi Haeon gets an idea about where to find his dad and Mi-kyung. He asks Dong-soo and Jong Cheol to help track them down. They find Chairman Bae and Mi-kyung returning from an international trip. When Mi-kyung tries to run, Yi Haeon drags her back and confronts her about everything she did to him and his mother. The chairman is upset with Mi-kyung and worries about how her actions could harm the company. Impressed by Yi Haeon's courage, he offers to officially recognize him as his son, but Yi Haeon turns him down, saying he's not suited to be a father. Afterward, Si-kyung apologizes to Yi Haeon's spirit for not helping him when he needed it and for blaming him for the bullying. Yi Haeon's spirit forgives him. Later, Dong-soo figures everything out and shares a heartfelt goodbye with Duke Pal. After a week of settling things and making sure Yi Haeon's life is safe, Duke Pal prepares to leave. However, Yi Haeon's spirit chooses to move on, saying he's suffered enough and is ready for peace. Duke Pal tries to convince him otherwise, but Yi Haeon insists. In the end, Duke Pal returns to life as Yi Haeon and graduates high school. The film marks its final conclusion with Duke Pal and Se-kyung attending university together.